It's that time again. Time for your reality check. So, as you know, me and Casey are going to start doing this on Mondays and Thursdays. We had our first show on Monday. I think we did pretty good. I let her pick the topic tonight, and I'm excited to hear what she wants to talk about. You want to say, hey, Casey?
Hello, everybody. Good to be back here again.
Yeah, it's going to be, well, you want to tell them a little bit what we're going to I'm one of those people that I don't really like really long intros. So I just kind of get, because I watch so much stuff on YouTube. So I'm like, okay, let's get to the thing we're getting to.
I'm all about that short, sweet, and to the point. And that's good because I don't really know how to put on a show. So I'm good with just straight into it. Yeah. So last week we were talking about nuclear families, and I've been kind of stuck on that subject ever since, but we had discussed things from a feminist point of view on Monday, and I got kind of hooked on one thought there. So I guess I'm going to start off with that and then move on from there. But anyways, to the point. Out of that website that we went through, we were looking at quotes of different feminists. One that stood out to me on its own was, being a housewife is an illegitimate profession. The choice to serve and be protected and plan towards being a family maker is a choice that shouldn't be. The heart of radical feminism is to change that. So that has been spiraling in my head a bit. And the reason why is because I have worked a ton of jobs to support myself since moving out of my parents' house. And mind you, I was in high school still. I hadn't finished whenever I moved out and started living on my own. And I just can't think of a single skill that I've learned at any of my jobs that a housewife wouldn't use at a certain point. And you kind of almost have to be skilled with a lot of things in order to keep even one human alive, let alone multiple, if you're keeping pets alive, if you're maintaining the house in the meantime. So I was just like really caught up on that quote and really thrown off by the hypocrisy of being a stay-at-home mom, like a housewife, as being a choice that shouldn't be. So I guess right now I'm still reeling over the fact that there's people that think that way. But I had more to say on that. Let me just get that out of my system real quick and then pause.
Oh no, you're doing great. That's a good way to kind of introduce what we're wanting to discuss. Yeah, listen, I will say, what is this out here? And it never fails. Everybody always kind of messages me right when I'm live on air, guys. If it ain't my phone dinging from a text, it's something to DM from blinging from a DM online. Mm-hmm. But Biblical Smackdown says, "Hey, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I'm loving every minute of it," and that's a great point. And I watched was it Bill Burr? All of you know who Bill Burr is. I love Bill Burr. He's a comedian, red-haired. Dude is hilarious. And he was doing a skit, and it's funny, I was watching it earlier today, and he was kind of like mocking these same women that say being a stay-at-home mother is the hardest job. And he was like, wait a minute, I thought maybe, just maybe, going out and, he said, how many stay-at-home mothers or mothers do you know that were killed in ice road truckers, or how many of them, out there fishing on the deadliest catch? Or, he said, I thought it was pretty rough being redheaded and standing on top of a roof in the middle of July. But no, those stay-at-home moms, bending over, putting another DVD in the tray, or any job you can do in your pajamas all day, you might want to think. But again, as society, we were told for however long until they decided to change it, that being a stay-at-home mother was the toughest job. It was a thankless job, and it was a 24/7 day a week job. And there's an argument to be made there. But these are the same women that are now coming out and saying that, if that's your goal in life, then you have no goals. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a stay-at-home mother, then you should be thinking more about your education, or you shouldn't have to worry about a man. You should be worried about that dollar bill. Needless to say, that women are the only gender that can create another human being, that generate the food for said human being. And I just find it demoralizing to try and tell a woman that she shouldn't be appreciated if that's the choice she makes in life. Because I guarantee the person she's with, if they'll be married or committed in a long-term relationship, will respect the fact that that's the choice she's decided to raise their children. But yeah, so I get it. Society is so back and forth about this. It's disgusting. And then you see feminists come out with that quote that you just said when we read the article the other day. And it's just, who is this woman to say that?
Yeah. And you know what? I was thinking about it, like, so that woman specifically, I don't know why I got so caught on this one lady in this one quote. I like went and was like, looked up about her life a little bit. She's a writer, and she had stated, she had this quote on one of her websites that said, "When you dated men you'd grown up with, which I did, it was a fantasy. I was forever an 18-year-old virgin in their eyes. And we all went to bed with these fantasies and then woke up with the reality. Every single case was one of fantasy. The bubble had to burst, and always in a really bad way. We never forgave each other, any of us." And so I was thinking about that and that mentality of just the throwaway culture we have now. Like, something's difficult, get rid of it. This person's irritating me, they must be toxic. Get toxic people out of your life. And it just seemed like a very throwaway mindset to me. And more recently, I've been working at home more. Like, I work with dogs, but for the most part, I've been taking care of the house and, taking care of my dog, making sure things get done that need to get done, prepping food and whatnot. And I am an absolute workaholic. Every job I have, no matter whether it's a more physical job, a more mental job, anywhere I've ever worked, I work the hardest that I can. And I was thinking, maybe that's the difference. We have so many people nowadays who just don't want to work. So they just project that on everything. And they assume that if somebody, I keep on saying stay-at-home mom, but really it could be just stay-at-home parent, or even not a parent, just somebody who chooses to maintain their property or whatever it is you care for on your property. Like, if you just go into anything with the mindset of like, oh, if something's difficult, just give up, then then being a stay-at-home whatever is going to seem like the laziest job in the world, because you think that you just get to sit around and do nothing all day. But if you approach life with a working mindset of like, shit needs to get done, then the stay-at-home mom or housewife or, homekeeper, whatever you want to call it, it's actually, you have never-ending to-do list, really, if you're doing it well. So I guess that if you're just lazy, you project laziness onto people who stay at home, I guess, or want to keep, I keep on saying stay at home, but I mean just somebody dedicated to caring for the home.
Well, maybe it would be too easier if we kind of expressed how we feel about the situation. So I'll start first, and then I'll ask you 3 questions if you're comfortable enough to ask them. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, I'm 45. I can't have children. I've never been able to have children. I raised a stepson for about 10 years until my divorce, which I think I did a pretty daggone good job of it. If you would ask him, he would. I mean, he still maintained a relationship with me, but so it was kind of like it was a decision made for me, as far as like giving birth to my own kids. Okay. But I've helped my sister raise her children. I have, I loved them to death. I mean, I was with those kids so much they thought the people out in the ball field thought I was their mother. So I still had the opportunity to kind of almost play that role, but I've never had any biological children of my own. Okay. So going to you, do you want to have kids?
Yes.
Do you know how many?
No, I don't know how many. I'm not, I guess just whatever seems right as time goes on.
Really? Most women will have they'll say 2 or 3, because when you say, oh, well, whatever, you could have 10.
Yeah. Well, that's actually, so my family's like Irish and Catholic. So everybody just has like buckets of kids, I guess, all the time. And so I don't necessarily want a lot, but honestly, I enjoy children. I enjoy them. So I don't know. I guess if I could afford and had the place to like raise them safely. I wouldn't care if I had like even up to 5, I want to say, but that would be like, there'd be a lot of factors that would have to happen before then.
Okay, and after you have children, do you still want to pay like significant bills in the household? Or do you want to basically go back to work?
Oh, after kids.
Well, I mean, after you give birth, do you want to go back to work or do you want to stay home with the kids?
Oh, okay. So here's where I would want to stay home with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there, I told you I was listening to this guy on here that goes, he's too harsh to me. I think the man has kind of built up an ego where women need to hear some truths. And I'm saying that as a woman, but he also says things because he lives in a big city. He lives in Atlanta. He tries to tell people that if they want 2 or 3 kids, then they need to be bringing in an income of $350,000 a year. I'm here to tell you that my parents raised 2 kids. And even if you factor in inflation, where I live in Tennessee, it ain't going to cost you $350,000 a year to raise a couple kids. It just isn't. So see, that would mean that it would, you look at these 2 factors in my mind, especially when you look at childcare nowadays, how expensive that is. And then that's a stranger kind of raising your children. So we've learned this over the last year, what kind of morals they're going to instill in your children. I'd trust the parents to know what they want their children, listening to or reading or watching more than a stranger that just has 20 other kids they got to take care of. But 2, if you're talking about staying home after children and say you want 2 or 3 or 5 or 7, 5, we'll go 5. Yeah. And you're going to be basically a perpetual stay-at-home mom. Okay, because once you have the one and say you're never going to get a kid old enough to go to school to where then you could just work during the day because there's always going to be that next kid, right? Yeah. So you would have to find a partner that is good with that. And I think men with the good that's been raised in a household where they see the benefits of having 2 parents, right? This is my opinion, having 2 parents and being raised by their mother. I think that man, in my humble opinion, would understand how important that is. Mm-hmm. Where and I fear in today's society, it's been diminished so much that I don't think it's the men that wouldn't appreciate it. I think women are the ones that are like, well, that's not ever enough. A stay-at-home mom isn't enough. And that's, to me, the disaster that's going on.
Yeah, that women aren't content with raising their own children.
Yeah, they think that it's not a respectable position, if that's what you want to call it, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think that that's certainly the case. At least that's what was instilled into me my entire life, was like, you need to do more. Because even whenever my parents got divorced, and she was like, she had the main custody over my older brother and I, she still just like joined the military after that. And like, still, she like went to be a combat medic because I'm not saying that she didn't think that my older brother and I were enough, but something was instilled in her that just staying at home with us was not a reasonable or respectable option.
Yeah. And see, that is like, I'm watching chat as well. Oh my God, 412 said, for the love of God, please not 10. I remember he's listening out there too. I forget about that who I'm talking to sometimes. I'm like, oh man, he's getting a list together probably right now because she said 5 or because she said she'll stay home.
We've already had this conversation. He wants a whole lot less than I do.
He probably knows all this. But listen, at the rate of how much we're not procreating or recreating the next generation, it's not a bad idea when people have more than 2, okay? Because that's just replacing them. But there's people out in chat that says like always in Texas says she wanted 8 until my first got a traumatic brain injury at 10 weeks and things changed. And it's always going to be like, there's always going to be those circumstances that happen to people where they have this vision. So I don't want to discredit anything, she said, that of course can impact your decision that you think you want in your early 20s that wind up happening later on. But yeah, to that, like, again, I was raised in a 2-parent household. My parents worked their butts off, but when we needed to be watched, right, my mother went back to work. which, might shock some folks, but my grandmother watched us, right? Or like we had this babysitter that lived down the road. But she only babysat like 4 or 5 kids. And I remember being in kindergarten and walking with my older sister to her house until my parents got off work. So I think that can work as well. But I think it really depends on parents finding the right person for their child, right? And making sure that if you've got to fill out, or you hiring somebody for your business and you make them fill out a resume and you go in there and ask them the hard questions, and that's just for a damn job, right? Then what the hell do you think you should be doing for the person that's going to help raise your kids? They should be stuck way up on the damn soapbox and be questioned to death. Like, what do you think about this? Because at the end of the day, that person is going to, impact your child. It just is. So yeah, I believe, again, so I don't try to set my ways with broad brush strokes and say you can't be a mother that wants to go back to work. If you find the right person, a grandparent's great, or that person that has a small little business, only has 4 or 5 kids, not, and then that depends on what their age is, of course. But so I don't like these people in society now, especially quote unquote feminists, that brush with this broad stroke and say, if you want to be a stay-at-home mother, you're less than a CEO of a candle business or whatever, because that's ridiculous. It's not really hard to sniff out candles. It's kind of hard raising a human being to be a good human being. And it makes me think of that Tom McDonald song that says, why don't we stop worrying about the planet and raise better. What is it? What does he say? Something about the planet, the better raise better kids for the planet. Like talking about, raising better kids.
We're always worrying about what planet we're leaving our kids, but why don't we worry about what kids we're leaving for our planet?
Yeah, leaving better kids for the planet. Exactly. I think that has a lot of truth to it.
Oh, so, yeah. Yeah. Because some people, that's the other problem too, is a lot of people reproduce just because they had sex. And that's why they have kids. They didn't do it because they wanted to have children. You know what I mean?
Well, that's where you'll get me off on a whole nother tangent about that, because you have all these new mothers in the world, or all these people crying out that they're the victim because now they have all these children. And I watched one video that went viral last year where this woman was complaining because the state wasn't giving her enough money to raise her own kids. And then the women, conveniently enough, try and blame the man, but women are the ones that decide about the sex. Okay. Women are the ones that say yes or no to sex. Men are the ones that say yes or no to marriage. I don't know if people figured that out yet, but that's how it goes. So if you're laying down with someone, how many options do women have for birth control? Implants, the pill. You can demand the man put on a condom. You have all these options to not get pregnant. So when you lay down and don't take any of them on, you can't look around and say, I don't know how this happened, and it's all your fault. A man can take responsibility and say, I'm not going to do anything without one on, which today is a smart decision to make. But it infuriates me that a lot of women today, and again, I'm not speaking for all of you, I'm sure a lot of people out there, women, get it, but a lot of women today don't take any accountability on for their decisions. It's always the man did this, the man don't take care of his babies, the man. Well, maybe if you chose to have children with the man that was responsible and decided to commit to you before you decided to go have kids with them, that's just a thought.
And it's a thought that's surprisingly uncommon. But whenever you notice, if you pay attention to what kids are learning, you do realize the things that they just the basic fundamental things that aren't instilled. And something that you just said about birth control just kind of was striking a memory with me. I don't know how many kids, whenever I was younger, myself included, girls my age, that were just put on birth control whenever you reach, childbearing age, just in case. Do you know that? Just putting them on birth control. Whenever I was old enough to menstruate, and my mom was like, oh, you're probably in a good age to start taking birth control, just because you're at an age where you could get pregnant. Like that was more of a talk than being responsible with your own body.
Yeah,
and that was very common with a lot of my girlfriends. It was just like, yeah, we're on birth control now.
to see, and that, again, that's a whole nother conversation where it's why aren't young girls being told to respect themselves enough not to, the first thing they're taught is to get on birth control that way, so when they do have promiscuous sex they don't have children. Why don't you teach that daughter that she should respect herself enough not to give it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry walking down the damn road, or in her high school that's a popular guy? Like, again, that's where I feel like I feel very, very thankful that I had men in my life that taught me that. I mean, I would watch my friends all around me have sex in the same damn circle with 2 or 3 different guys. And I was like, what in the hell is this trashy ass shit? I just wouldn't do it. I was like, what? This dude they don't even want to date you. Why would you give it the most precious thing that you can give it? Because that's what my grandfather always taught me. That's the most precious thing. You know what I mean? So I don't know, freaking whatever. But the young girls are taught that, but look at rap videos, look at the movies, look at that video that went viral the other day where all these teachers, did you see that, where they came out in front of that school board and were reading excerpts from the books that said, oh my God, I wish I could find it on Fly, and D-Live could drop links if anybody out there, I don't know if you can in Foxhole or not, but that was that viral video and they were reading these excerpts, and it was like, Sally down the road who was having sex with Johnny at the blah, 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 she was a hoe, and stuff like that. And you're like, what? And then you don't think they're trying to sexualize children? Please look at what is Cardi B and WAP, or any rap song you can listen to about smacking the hoe and well, the sweat dropped down my balls. All those, I mean, hello, it ain't teaching women to respect yourself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Dude, I just cringe sometimes whenever I listen to like old music that I grew up like just singing and dancing to, or like whatever, or even just thinking about how I was allowed to dress as a kid. Like I was always grateful that my mom wasn't really strict about like my clothing or my style or whatever. But like now that I'm older, I'm like, why didn't you just put more clothes on me? Like just make me do it. Like I don't know. But like so my age group, like I'm already mortified by what I grew up listening to, because whenever I go back now as an adult and listen to it, I'm just like, oh, every single song was about promiscuous sex. Every last one, even the one I didn't think was about that. But now I'm seeing it like there's generations below me now, and it's like way worse. Like 9-year-olds twerking, like wearing nothing in front of adults. Like, oh, I was babysitting this girl one time whenever she was like 11. She was on her cell phone for like 2 seconds. And then I just hear her say, is that a penis in that girl's mouth? And I was like, what?
I will tell you, I'll tell you this really quick, that you said that. This, again, guys, I'm just here to tell you, I found this out from watching another YouTuber that got demonetized, and he was talking about how he got demonetized and what they will allow on YouTube. What they allow on YouTube, okay, is a guy, two gay guys. Have you seen Dick or Dildo?
Dick or Dildo?
You know what? Yes. Do you know what that is?
No.
Let me enlighten you, okay? There's these two gay guys on YouTube, and one of them lays down on his stomach, and y'all hold on, because I didn't tell y'all to bring your pacifier, okay? It's called Reality Check. He's laying down on his stomach, and there's a sheet. At least they put a sheet up, I guess, right at the bottom of the other guy's back, and his partner is standing up behind him, and the dude laying down in the front of it has to decide whether it's his penis or a dildo that he's sticking in his butthole. That's child approved and monetized on YouTube right now.
Nuh-uh.
Word of God. I wouldn't say it if I wasn't being serious. Trust me. That's why I watch all these different platforms, because I'm like, I know the hypocrisy. I know the hypocrisy that a child can find that video, and yet somebody can't talk about COVID or the vaccines or the masks or any of that. But you will allow and monetize and recommend to children Dick or Dildo. Don't think there's an agenda? People don't think there's an agenda? I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there's such an agenda. I know, because you guys, anyone who's talking about all the sex trafficking rings, that sort of thing. That's all hush hush whenever it's done uh, by conservative people, I guess I want to say. But my little sister, whenever she was like 12, she came up to me like, I know what sex trafficking is because of Wayfair. I learned about it on TikTok. Don't ever buy don't ever buy furniture from Wayfair. You're gonna get a child. And I'm just like, wait, on TikTok, they can just talk about all that stuff. But then the people who want to end it are the ones who get demonetized and their voices silenced. Interesting.
Yeah, and if anybody's interested in checking out that YouTube channel, Operation Underground Railroad, is a guy. He's combats child trafficking. He's really good. He goes to these different countries and tries to save these kids sold into it. But what nobody talks about is the number one consumer of that stuff is America. You want to know where all the sickos live? Here. Nobody ever talks about it. You wonder why. Again, that's a whole nother subject, but that my opinion on why they're shoving so many of these kids over the border and then just leaving them. Where are these kids going? Can anybody tell me where these kids are going? Because they lose track of them conveniently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? It's these people who want to be stay-at-home moms who are really the awful people.
Yeah.
Just real jerks for wanting to take care of their own kids and not give their kids up to communities to raise, to strangers.
Well, now they're trying to pass I don't remember if California's passed it or not. I want to think that they did, but I remember there was a bill that was introduced that said 11-year-olds or older could be put on any kind of medication that the school recommended, and they didn't have to tell the parents. Yeah. Now you imagine you're the parent of that 11-year-old kid, and whether or not it's testosterone or estrogen or ADD medication or whatever. And I think it was Christy Alley's been getting a lot of crap. I won't get on to her Scientology side of things, but because that's a whole, again, another discussion. But she's been speaking out on Twitter about some of the things she's seen that's ridiculous and how conservatives are targeted and stuff like that. Yeah, Christy Alley. Mm-hmm. And she talked about how many of the children that were being now put on all these psychotropic drugs, ADHD, stuff like that. And it's some astronomical amount. It's an astronomical amount. She said, if you look into the foster program and these children in DCS, she said the majority of them are immediately put on it. So you wonder why parents are so important. You wonder why your mom and dad are important. Maybe they might have an issue with that. They might just let a boy be a boy and climb a tree and wreck his bike and stub his toe. You start taking him to the doctor nowadays, and they're like, "Oh, he's ADHD. Let's put him on his meds." Where was ADHD 20 years ago? It seemed like there was a whole generation of kids that I don't know. But yeah, there's that. So it's almost like the intentional drugging of these children. And if I were a parent, that's why you're seeing all these parents drag their children out of schools and homeschooling them.
Well, as they should. Nowadays, I can't handle hearing sometimes about what goes on in schools. Like my 15-year-old brother, like a year or two ago, I remember him sending me a Snapchat of his teacher just rambling on about how much she hated Trump. And he's like, I wonder when I'm going to learn Spanish in Spanish class. And I'm just like, you're really getting sent there. Your mental energy, your creative energy, all that gold that you have in your child mind right now is just being taught to hate the president, not being taught how to become a president one day. I don't know. It's just it sickens me. I've got my stomach is a little turned thinking about that. For a child to be able to be medicated without their parents' knowledge. And I get that it's all under the facade that the educated people, the teachers know better or whatever, but they don't. What is the evidence that they know better about anything? What is it that they know that's better? It's just when you go to a dog training class and there's somebody teaching you how to raise your puppy, and then you find out that they've never had a puppy or a dog in their life. That can happen. I don't understand.
Well, I do think there's an issue too whenever you're talking about your children, parents should be making decisions on what medications are put in children's bodies. I believe parents should be making the decisions on if school books openly talk about having sex with other kids, or talking about Billy being, sexually engaged with another named Tommy, and Sarah being with Sally. I think that's a parent's decision, not a school's decision. I don't. I mean, that just goes down to them also trying to inject these kids with HPV vaccines. I mean, that's a disease you get when you're sexually active, and they want to give it to them when they're newborns. And they say it wears off in 12 years. So you're telling me you want to inject a newborn child, with something that won't even be effective for 12 years. That puts them at 12 years old. How many 10-year-olds do you think are out here roaming the streets? But this is a huge conversation. It could be turned into a huge conversation, because, again, I believe that's up to a parent. And when you start trying to tell a parent they have no right to have input on what's put into their child or what their child's taught, that's when you see all these parents pulling their kids out of schools. Yeah. And I believe, and you don't need $350,000 to raise, 3 or 4 kids. Maybe you do if you live in Los Angeles. They get the hell out of Los Angeles anyway. You don't want your children raised up in that damn school system. So yeah. I don't know what they're trying to do to deter these, again, I guess going back to the nuclear family.
Well, that is it. It comes back to the nuclear family all the time. And it doesn't have to be so rigid. Like, I get that sometimes a spouse could die, or, things, unplanned things happen that can really shake a family. But just like, couldn't it be a goal for it to just be, we get together, we work on things? I don't see that as anyone being a slave, like some of the feminists were saying. So I was reading this book, the one I showed you earlier. It's called The Early Years Matter, and it's about the education, care, and the well-being of children from birth to 8 years old. And I picked this up a while ago because I'm really fascinated by early learning. For my senior project, whenever I was in high school, I volunteered at like a literacy center and helped, I read books to preschoolers and kindergartners and taught them to make little illustrations. And so I bought this book thinking that it would just help with whatever little questions I had about certain things. And man, am I just so shocked whenever I read it. It's for parents, and it talks about the education and care options that you have for your child. And nowhere in this book does it suggest that that homeschooling could be an option. The options it gives you for early care is like family, friends, and neighbors, but they discourage that. They want you to get into a government-run program. And then I found out halfway through the book that that's all this is basically like teaching you how to get your kids into government programs. And the reason that they have for it is that children that aren't in these school programs are more likely to be abused by a family member or sexually assaulted, things like that. And I'm realizing as I'm reading this book, is that the point of this book? Are they just saying in the most indirect way possible that if your kid stays at home, that something horrible is going to happen to them because parents just allow horrible things to happen all day? Not saying that there aren't really shitty parents out there that do horrible things, but I guess I didn't realize how systemic it was. The actual, really just attack on the nuclear family. It's going to blow my mind, I think, for the next couple weeks, how real this is. But
yeah, that's why, I will go ahead and say it here. I can't commit her to it because she is a very busy person, but that's why I'm excited to bring Michelle Litz back onto the table to have these discussions with us, because that woman, she isn't just a talker, she's a doer. And she's the president and co-founder of the Child Protection League. And I mean, she has gone to Capitol Hill. She's going to a protest, I think, on the 11th of June. She's going to shoot to join us on the 3rd. But that lady knows her stuff, about CRT. She knows about the transgender push. She knows about what they're trying to take the decisions away from the parents and leave them up to a school board. Like, she has watched it happen over the years, not just, when I started paying attention, but she's done this for years. So it's nice to me to have someone that's been in the trenches, like we can read about it. We can do, a lot of research on it, but somebody that's out there and actually seen it. To give you just quickly who she is, when she found out they were trying to push for transgender bathrooms in the Minnesota schools, she took out a whole page ad. I believe it was half a page or a whole page ad. And it was a picture of, I think, I can't remember, a student or something. And she says, I think it was a boy. And she said, do you want him in your girl's bathroom or something to that effect? I'm massacring what really it was. But I remember she said that she got so much attention for that one newspaper ad she put out that, she was shocked by it, she stopped that bill from going through, I believe. But that just kind of shows the kind of person she is. And she's hopefully willing to come on and kind of speak about her actual experience and what she has seen. And again, to me, it goes back from they're not getting their agenda pushed down people's throats enough. So they want to take the decision away from parents and they want to put it in the hands of the government. And so, as any parent should feel concerned, I believe that, I don't know, it's like they're all in this together. It's like they send them all the same playbook. And they say, okay, this is the agenda for this year. This is what we need to do to society for this year. Let's focus on the kids this year. And then you kind of watch it happen. And it's kind of scary to me. But yeah, I'm excited. I hope that she can, because I believe you'll enjoy her. I believe you'll get along really well with her. But yeah, it's in your face every day. It's like even what they're trying to do with transgender sports. The people, the activists that speak out about it. Oh, well, they should be included in sports too. Until you look at that 12-year-old girl who's been running track, her whole life and been training for it, ranked the top, 5, at the track meets, and then watch somebody come in that was, competing as a boy 2 years prior and literally break the record for their school district. It's not fair. So I think it's like why they want to take the power away from the parents, because kids are so easily swayed. You put them in a group of people that believe something when they're 8 years old, 9 years old, and they're the outlier. It won't take very long for that kid to realize that if they don't, join the groupthink, then they're going to be picked on, they're going to be laughed at, or they're not going to have the friend circle. And so I believe that's why you have all these people that you have these videos now. And actually, Michelle sent me one the other night, and YouTube suppresses them, where all these people are coming out saying that they're transitioning back to their, actual gender, and nobody's talking about it. I think if you had parents involved more, and knew what was going on, maybe there would have been a lot less of that, because they were doing it. They were doing it in school systems, and I don't know. It's alarming. Again, parents are important. 2 parents are important. If you want to lay down and have a child, maybe you should first think about finding your significant other, the one that wants to be with you, before you start thinking about having damn kids. It's not a Saturday night, drunk at the club, go lay down in a bed, and then pop out a kid and don't even remember the dude's name. Think more about the child, think more about that child than you're thinking of your good time.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when you have sex, folks. Kid.
Yeah, that's one of the functions. We forget about that, but that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so many people out here nowadays too that want children that can't have them. But then you look at a society where the government almost rewards you for being a single parent. And then you wonder why you can go down in the projects. And I'm not making this a race thing. I live where I live. I know white people that live in the projects. So spare me all that shit. But where you see these women that have had a kid out of wedlock, then have a second one or a third one, and you're like, what are you doing? Well, the government gives me more money. I'm like, What the hell? You know what I mean? Think about they're thinking about the paycheck, not about the kid. That's when society, is failing.
Yeah. And then like that in combination with the fact, like, or with the idea of, if you've never seen an example of that, of like a healthy decision of two people like having kids, like I don't think that a lot of the people I grew up with, at least ones that I'm thinking off the top of my head now, I don't know how many people were intentionally created. Like, a lot of my friends were like the oops baby, or even if their parents were married, you know, there's the one that they weren't planning on having. Or like, I never grew up really knowing, I hate saying this in case anyone in my family or anyone that I love is listening, but like, my dad is a strong person. He's a strong leader. He's a hard worker, but whenever he doesn't have custody, that doesn't really help me whenever I need that sort of figure in my life. Whenever you don't have an example of just like a loving marriage where people have kids on purpose because they want them and because they intend to take care of them and have plans for that. If the government then also is like making it easier for you to just never have that, and you feel empty and lost and unfulfilled because you didn't have what you needed from your parents when you're young, then I can see why you would just like throw yourself into bed and have a baby, you know, and kind of hold on to whatever you can. I get that mindset that some people have. It's just, it's not helpful to society, unfortunately. You know, no matter whose fault it is.
Well, this is where I will bring in religion, and I don't do that try to do that very often, but I think that's another reason why they are attacking religion so hard, is because if you were born and raised in kind of like around a religious community or household, they push for, finding that person before you have children, finding your significant other before you have kids. And so, there are people out there that, even like Sam Harris, who's an atheist, he says he understands why religion is important, because it does give people a foundation of morals and values that I think that today's society is trying to mock and make fun of and eradicate. I mean, there's a reason why during this whole year of COVID, you could go buy liquor, you could go get you weed, you could go to a strip club. I'm not making this up, look it up. But you would, if you tried to go to church, you saw the videos where people were in parking lots because they were trying to follow the quote unquote guidelines. They were sitting in their cars and police officers pulled up and started writing them all tickets. You know what I mean?
For going to church.
But yeah, I mean, there's a argument to make that religion does keep people grounded, and it does practice a good moral standing for parents, because you want to become a couple before you become parents. In today's society, everything in your face is all about live free, do what you want to do, be who you want to be, girl. You know what? Women can go out here and be hookers too. There's no judgment here. Don't slut shame nobody. Don't fat shame nobody. Don't mansplain to nobody. Do you, girl, you do you. And then you see 20 years down the road where all these 35 and 40-year-old women are complaining why they can't get married. They got 3 kids on their hip by 1 or 2 or 3 dads. And then usually in life, when men get financially stable, because men think about this stuff, and I'm not saying women don't, I'm just saying they do. They usually make it in life about 35, 40 years old. They start getting comfortable. They've been in their jobs long enough. They've got good insurance, stuff like that. No 35, 40-year-old man is looking for a 35, 40-year-old woman that's got 3 kids by 3 damn different dudes. I mean, there is, it can happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm just saying that, if people were a little bit more responsible in that thought process, or didn't set their standards so high, then, a couple can always grow together. You can become financially stable together, and that strengthens that marriage as you're growing into financial stability. And then when you get to the point where you can have kids, you know what I mean? And that all can come from, having a religious upbringing. Again, not saying that's not the only way. I'm just saying, I think that's why nowadays you see people being mocked for being religious.
Oh, yeah. That I definitely saw growing up. That you hit on a really good point there, kind of triggered me a bit in a good way. But whenever I was growing up, my family, both sides of my family, I want to say, are Catholic, or at least practicing Christian. They go to church. My mom's side was definitely Catholic, but because my parents were divorced, I was like, my older brother and I kind of fell through the cracks in the family whenever it came to religion. Like we weren't, we didn't go to church. Actually managed to get grounded from going to youth group whenever I was a kid. So we didn't have a lot of, we didn't say grace before we ate. My mom would say that she was religious, but it wasn't really like a big part of our life or upbringing. And, but me being that way, like not being raised like that, I did have like a chip on my shoulder about kids my age that were religious and came from religious families. And I didn't realize it until I was older that I was just insanely jealous of them and how sure they were of themselves and who they were as people. But me being who I was, I'll never forget my friend telling me whenever we were like 10 or 11 years old, she started crying. And I was like, why are you sad? And she was like, I'm just so sad that you're going to be going to hell and that I'm not. And I guess it was because I wasn't like confirmed into church, or that I don't know. There was something about me that just, I guess she didn't think I was making it into heaven, even though we were so young. And so I did grow up kind of jealous of people with a strong moral upbringing. And I would find myself making fun of it because I was jealous, but it was so easy to do because South Park's making fun of religion. Everybody's making fun of it being a cult. And it's just, I don't know.
Honey, you can have your wackadoodles in religion too. Okay. You can have your, so see, this is why I don't do the broad brushstroke thing. And I always try, I know I say that repeatedly, but it's important to me because when I say like people that like religious people, I know that there's certain a sect of them that are judgmental. I talked to you about this before we went live. They're the kind of women that, like, again, my church, my religion is in me. And I've said it many times on this show that I have watched a lot of people lose their faith because not of God, but because of a church they went to, right? Or a pastor they listened to, or the people in the church that did something to them. And that's, to me, is where people get it skewed. Your relationship shouldn't be with the people in that church or your pastor. It should be with God, whoever that is for you. And so I will tell you how I relate to your story, and I'll tell you how it came from somebody that loved me. I was raised Baptist. Okay, I'm in the South. It's not a newsflash. But one of my aunts was a Church of Christ. And I'll never forget it. It was like it happened yesterday. And I've told this story a couple of times. I'm in the back seat with my aunt and uncle on the way to their church because I'd spent the night with them over the weekend. And I will never forget that my aunt was telling me that I was going to the wrong church and that their only church, their denomination was the only one that was for sure going to heaven. That if I was Baptist, then I'd go to hell. And I was just like sitting in the back seat at like this 12-year-old kid going, what the hell is she talking about? I came home, told my parents this. My mother, which was her sister, my aunt's sister, was not pleased about it. I mean, lit my aunt up the side and went down the other. And again, this came from my aunt, who I know loved me, but thought she was so morally right because she was going to a certain denomination that mine was somehow wrong. And that was a pathway to hell. So they're out there. Those people are out there. Okay. That's what I say repeatedly. Your relationship is your relationship to have. It's just like, to me, that's what I explain. It's like a marriage. When you're in a marriage with another person, that marriage should be about you and that other person. You're always going to have that friend that's going to come to you and say, well, girl, he shouldn't have blah, 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 blah. You know, those girls. Just like a dude shouldn't be like, well, man, you're all PW. She just called you and you said you're going home. Those people don't matter at the end of the day, because your relationship with your significant other should be based on your and his experience, not what everybody else tries to tell you should be experiencing. Right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, That's why don't ever it's the same thing with Antifa or the left or Maxine Waters to a Mitt Romney to a pastor of a church to a whoever. You're going to have your assholes that think they know the answer to everything. But you should be structured enough and feel safe enough and know yourself enough to be like, they can have their opinion. It doesn't mean I have to buy into it.
Oh man, and that is the beauty of being raised right, as I said earlier, is knowing who you are enough to stand up for yourself. I think because I grew up without that guidance, like in my early childhood, that like everything that you just said, I agree with so much. It makes so much sense to me. I just wish that an adult had said any of that to me before I turned like 8 years old. Like that would have been so nice. You know,
I wish that more boys and girls clubs existed, right? With really good grounded people in them that didn't judge everyone and understood people come from different circumstances. You can be the poorest person in the world and have great parents and appreciate everything they give you, even if it's the minimum, even if it's just a meal and you don't get a present for Christmas. You could have the best life because you were loved. And you can be somebody rich and have everything you could buy financially and be the most miserable person to walk again. The most miserable person because you don't feel like people really love you for who you are. They love you because of the money you make. So to me, it's all about that unit. It's about, knowing that people care about you because they care about you and they love you and they're not sitting there judging you for everything they think you should be and appreciate who you are. Regardless if you're poor or rich or whatever, to me that doesn't matter. Because look at how many celebrities, that millionaires that have ended their lives because they were miserable. And see, as poor folk, you'd be like, oh, they got everything. Look at them driving that $200,000 car. Well, that should show you that money doesn't buy happiness. Just the same thing. Money shouldn't influence your relationship with whoever your higher power is. If you have, whoever that is, just like your family shouldn't, or but I was lucky, and I didn't realize how lucky I was until I got older and realized there was so many messed up people in the world that, made people feel like shit. And it's sad.
Now, whenever you were younger, if you don't mind me asking, like, so you said you didn't realize until you were older, like how grateful you were. Did you ever go through periods where you were just like, felt so different from everyone else? Like that you knew?
When it come to sleeping around, I sure did. Because all my friends seemed like they were spreading their legs for anything with a heartbeat and 2 legs. And I was like, what in the hell? You know what I mean? But I never fell into that group think. Like I didn't abide by the pressure. I mean, there are times I was drove down to a boat dock with a bunch of dudes I went to school with. There was 4 of them. I didn't think nothing of it. I was 15 years old. I'm sitting in the back seat between 2 guys. 2 dudes are up front. And one guy turns to the front seat and turns around and looks at me. He said, what would you do right now if we told you to put out or get out? I said, open the damn door. That's exactly what I said. I went to another house in the same kind of summer, the same year. But kind of more about the people I was surrounding myself with. But I went to this house and it was this guy lived there and I was again 15. I'd never been with anybody in my life. And he kept trying to touch my breast. And I was like, dude, get your hand off me. He's like, it's my house. I'll do what I want to do. Girl, I was in cowboy boots and I walked my ass all the way home. I walked all the way home. Wasn't 2 blocks away. I was about 4 miles from where I lived. And I walked the whole damn way in boots and it started raining on me. That's how having good men and good women whenever you're young to impress upon you that you don't have to be pressured into doing something you don't want to do because there's a group of people around you looking at you like you should. Girl, I always was like, put my damn boots on, I walk my ass home. You know what I mean? Or the dude at the boat dock, open a damn door. You know what I mean? And I was surrounded by girls that, let me just tell you something, they didn't have that kind of upbringing. And again, I never realized what that was until I got older, that nobody could pressure me into doing something I didn't want to do. And I don't think if people in my life, I'd been that way. I don't know.
That
I mean, you can't tell I'm a pretty like headstrong person. That's why I can't be with a weak, I don't want to say, well, I mean, I guess I will, a weak man, a weak minded man, because I walk all over them. I got to have a strong guy that's like, listen, I know you're in a pissy mood, but you need to, stop taking that shit out on me. And I'm the kind of be like, yep, you're right. I'm whatever. You know what I mean? Let me go read a book, because I can take it too.
Yeah, you just have to know that it's for the right reasons.
Yeah, ain't no man going to put his hands on me. That was attempted too, and I'm divorced. I ain't going to let a man cheat on me. I'm divorced. I'm not going to put up with it.
See, whenever I have kids, all 10 of them, all 10 of my kids are or however many, I want them all to be that confident in their ability to just say no to things. Because although I didn't go down entirely the route of your more promiscuous friends, but one definite issue that I developed that I know was simply because of my early upbringing is I don't think I had my own personality up until like a couple years ago, because I was so used to just getting passed to a different house to stay here with these kids for a while. And then I have a different babysitter a different week, or maybe I'll be living with a different family member, just kind of all over the place, because I couldn't live with my dad and my mom was working all the time. So like, just as a kid, I had to learn to follow the rules of all the different houses. And I may not always remember who was in charge of each house, but I know that if I'm at least polite, that, I'll get food and water. And I know that if I at least pretend to like all the things that the other kids around me like, I'll at least have a way to pass the time. And that happened for so long, so much over the course of my whole childhood, that I found myself I almost went crazy a couple years ago, because I was like, whoever I'm around, I act like. I'm getting sick of it. I don't know if I'm around an anxious person, I'm going to be anxious about everything, even if I'm not feeling anxious. And if I'm around somebody who wants to just party all day, I'm going to want to party all day. If I'm around somebody who just wants to read books, I'm going to want to quietly read books. And I used to think of that as a positive, probably through most of my 20s, because I was like, oh, I can just get along with anyone anywhere. But then I realized that I would get myself into situations that I so far into it that I'm just like, how am I even here? So I didn't have my own personality.
And you just kind of said it, right? Can you still hear me? Because my internet said it was unstable for a second.
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. But that goes to the point of being that I wish that, again, that's what to me they're trying to destroy. Society is trying to destroy, because where do you think young girls and young boys learn to become confident, independent, free thinkers that stand strong in what they think and believe, regardless of the groupthink? It comes from your parents. It comes from your grandparents. It comes from a good aunt or your siblings being a good role model because they were raised that way before you were. I mean, I would be nothing that I am today. They impressed upon me how valuable I am as a woman, as far as what we talked about earlier, to give to a man. I don't have to repeat it again, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And how you don't fall in line just because everybody in front and behind you are telling you to do it. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. And so again, today in society and all this stuff, and with mainstream Hollywood, the music industry and everything, telling women to be hoes, and and men don't have a point, and you like, what's the purpose here? What's the goal here? And it feels like the goal is to Miss Independent, you do whatever you want to do, and men sit down and shut up. And then you got a bunch of kids with green hair crying to their mom at 27 saying, you don't understand me. You didn't call me they, them. You're like, what the hell? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I think it's so important that you have that strong base. And if you can't find it, I don't, that's what makes me sad. I don't know what to tell I don't know. I don't know what to say to kids. I don't know because I don't know where they go. We've shut down every mental health facility. There's no more Boys and Girls Club. They've I was in Girl Scouts, I'll tell you that. Maybe that's a good place to start, is finding that support outside of your family if they're not giving it to you, but finding it where they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. Girl Scouts did a lot for me too back in the day. Taught me a lot of stuff, a lot of skills, and taught me how to build friendships. But like, what would you do? You've been through it, so what would you tell kids? If they were in your kind of situation where you said kind of going from household to household and never kind of having any real like structure, now that you're, the age that you're at, seeing everything that you've seen, what would you tell those kids?
Hmm. That's actually that's a question worth reflecting on. I don't even know if I have an answer right away, just because there are so many different limitations. Like whenever I don't know, like honestly, it's like I almost want to tell people, and maybe this is why I'm really grateful that people are focusing on solutions right now, but I just want to tell kids, like, don't internalize this and just stay alive. Because nowadays, whenever I talk to kids who are young, like, I don't know, they just know and talk about some really depressing stuff. So I just want them to stay alive until they're adults, I guess, and they're not as controlled. You made my mind spiral on that one. I didn't want to sound very hopeless there. I'm just confused because I don't really know, whenever the whole system's against a child and that child's parents aren't paying attention. I just want to talk to the parents.
I will tell you, I think a good first step is I've always thought people should go back to the old schoolhouse way of thinking. Like I always said that if people could do it and you lived in a great neighborhood or, a little county or whatever, finding that woman that is a good role model, taking your kids out of the public schools, finding, how many ever parents say it's 15 kids, 10 kids, whatever she can handle. And then the parents sending their children to, say, her school, if you will, be homeschooled. And then those parents rallying together to support her. Like, they send all the food for the kids to have lunch, right? And then they kind of send into a fund where they can take field trips. You never hear about freaking field trips anymore. I used to go field trips all the time and I loved it. Get on that stupid bus and drive wherever it was. We had a blast. They gave kids a break. They actually got to learn something important. So those other parents kind of fund that field trip so her and her kid can go, right? And to me, it keeps that. Then, that teacher's held accountable. The parents understand the curriculum. They're getting taught morals and to be free thinkers, the things I discussed earlier. But to me, if the school system is not fixed, then we're done for. Because that's why I'm so encouraged by these parents right now. And that's why I encourage everybody here tonight to. These parents are speaking out. These parents are putting their foot down and saying, not my kid. You have crossed a line. Now they've got to start pushing back on the medications and stuff too. If you see what they're pushing for, giving these kids medicines that parents don't even know about. But to me, that's where I'd start. If the school's not going to do it, then you take your daggum kids out. You find that mother that's willing to do it. You support her in what she's doing. And then, you can have an input on their curriculum. They're not being taught critical race theory. They're actually being taught history and science and math, those mind-blowing things in education. Getting to take a field trip to a rock quarry or a field trip to a cave or, wherever else, or a museum. And then you'll see, to me, at least your child and the children around them will be respectful and humble and appreciative kids that'll grow up to be a contribute to society instead of sitting at their parents' house until they're 45 wondering why they're alone. See, like KS2A said, I'm an Eagle Scout. When I was a kid, I didn't have to be indoctrinated by the TV. Exactly. Because like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, you had to go outside and do stuff. No kids are going outside and doing anything anymore. It's all about their PlayStation or their Xbox or their smartphone or their laptop. Remember back in the day, pretty significantly older than you. But like we always was outside. Like we spent our lives outside. We didn't have smartphones. Even when I got in high school, I had a pager, but that was it. But so many kids now don't even interact with kids their own age, even when they're surrounded by them because their head's buried in a freaking smartphone. So, and I'll tell you another breaking thing here. Do you know that people like Steve Jobs when he was alive, people like Bill Gates, people like even like Elon Musk, these people, when they have children and send their children off to these private schools, do you know that they send them to private schools that won't allow them to have phones? They're limited on their access to their iPads and smartphones. These are the people that created the products. Why do you think that is?
Because they know.
They know.
Yeah. It's like all the medical doctors that don't want to get their kids vaccinated. There's a lot of them. Like, yeah.
So parents need to stop thinking they need to buy their kid a smartphone when they're 10 or 12.
Yes.
I mean, just because they're coming whining to you saying, well, Billy and Sally and Tommy have a smartphone. Well, Billy and Sally and Tommy's parents can be stupid, but you're not getting one. Go outside and play.
Yeah. But you know what? Nowadays, like, well, that works. It's just if your kid is going to like a public school or if they have like a ton of friends whose parents think different, like it is amazing how quickly a parent's reputation can get ruined. And then that kid can't hang out with other kids because this parent doesn't like that parent, all the drama. So what you were saying about just like building a community, like, you know, learning somebody reliable, like just building that environment is so crucial, because peer pressure for parents is like a real issue these days. Not that it should be. Everybody should just not give in to peer pressure, but but it's not easy whenever you're a parent. Children are used as pawns for a lot of things. It's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, well, and it needs to be said that, you know, when you talk about peer pressure, because, you know, the new hairstyles in or the new makeup is trending on Twitter, we're talking about your damn kids. And if you let someone peer pressure you in how to raise your child, you might need to do some self-reflecting on your own, you know, who you are. Because the last person you should be allowing outside influence to be telling you what to do is when it comes to raising your freaking kids. You know, stand up for your kids. If you can't stand up for your kids, then I don't want to hear it. You know, I mean, it's like, really? These are the same people that are go out there, hashtag, you know, brave, hashtag, you know, whatever, love, and the hashtag grow your ass up, be a parent. Letting the little mob squad of 20, you know, 25, 30-year-old women tell you that, you know, she don't have on the right dress or you're not letting her read the right books, whatever. They're not raising your kid.
Yeah.
You have one chance. You know, when it comes to those kids, and you are raising the next generation in a human being. You know, look at what's happening. You bring up a lot about I know you, like me, love dogs and stuff, but look even in that society where people are out here buying dogs because they think they look cool and they have no business owning them. Those people should be considering parenthood. You know, to me, you know, you're getting a designer dog and then you're driving the dog crazy because you're locking it into a crate 10 hours a day and you don't understand why it's digging holes in your backyard, destroying every pair of shoe it can find. Because you're not you're not keeping it active enough, and then you want to do the same thing with a kid. Spare me.
Yeah, and then that same dog could go to somebody totally different who just pays attention and understands the nature of a dog, and that same dog will just be good. Kids are so similar, where if they have that good example, if they have that figure in their life, then they immediately can shape up. It's just whenever so many adults around them are failing at being that, and they don't really see how to push past the little things.
Yeah, but again, parents have got to start finding their backbone. There's millions of parents in this world. If you're not surrounded by people that are a good influence on you and supportive of you, find others. Find others. If you've never been into a church in your life and you don't want to go in there every daggum Sunday, maybe go a couple times to see if you can't find a community of people that at least want to teach your children, to support you in teaching your children good morals. and how to respect themselves and stuff. And it's just like looking through for a therapist. Okay, if you go into the one and they're like singing to snakes and they're I don't know, the crazy shaking and flopping around like a roach on the floor, then don't think that that's all of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's, and maybe you're more versed in if there's other places that's not a church to find that same support. But parents need to find that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that support needs to exist. I'm really grateful for, oh dear, I already forget her name. The person that may be joining us in June.
Michelle Ince.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on her website and I was looking through, and it is like there's such a disconnect between what children are learning and what the parents know. And then the parents will just kind of laugh it off too, like, oh, I'm too dumb to understand Common Core. I guess my kid's on their own. Like,
Yeah, if you can't freaking understand it, do you think your damn 8-year-old's going to be able to understand it? And that's the part of me that I don't get. Throwing your hands up and this thinking that that's everything's hunky dory because somebody in a position of quote unquote authority is telling you that this is how it's going to be. Look at what has happened to today's society by following lockstep and the people that are in power because they tell you, this is what you should do. I don't know. Go back and look at the last 100 years of how that's affected the population, what that's done. And then tell me if you feel in your gut what you know is right for your child. You don't need to let anybody influence you, especially the people that are telling you how bad you are. Step away from the indoctrination. You are raising a little mini you. Don't let anybody tell you the right and wrong way to do it. As my dog coughs over my side.
Your dog is in full support.
Yeah, buddy. But it's the truth, and you know what I mean. Because again, you can even knock it all the way down to people having dogs that have no business owning these damn dogs. You see them out there being drug around, like they're in the back of a sled by some husky because they live in an 800 square apartment and they work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and they went and decided they wanted a damn husky. Those people don't need a dog. I mean, those people don't need a kid because they care about how they look more than the health of whatever they're claiming to protect or raise or care for.
Yes, that mentality transfers over to so much. Do you know about like the whole force-free movement in dog training right now, the dog trainer wars that are going on?
The what? The force-free?
Force-free and fear-free dog training movement, where you can now get certified as a trainer or a groomer or a veterinarian as being a certified fear-free trainer or groomer. And basically, then you've taken an oath to never cause stress or fear in a dog, which would be fine if you weren't trying to shove a needle in the dog or, if all dogs were perfect and never bit anything. So there's certain areas that are trying to make it so different, like training collars are banned, but certain networking groups for dog trainers will even you're cast out of the group if you talk about improving your energy, or if you even say the word dominance, that's just like a bad word. You're just not allowed to be a member of any dog training networking group because you're a mean animal abuser. But basically it just leads to a bunch of huskies and German shepherds and all these dogs that should have jobs and should be a part of your life. Now they're just on Prozac because a veterinary behaviorist told you they need to be on Prozac because it's too mean to tell the dog to stop chasing cars or to not bite children or whatever the thing is. So
yeah, those are the same people that said in dog parks when a male dog was humping, they were trying to commit rape on other dogs. I mean, listen, those people right now, those people should all be given an Akita, a Ridgeback, and a Cane Corsa. And then they need to sit there and be as sweet and give it hugs and all the love they want, a bit of training, and then go back in 6 months and see how they feel. Start out with the Akita and the Cane Corsa and just hand them one.
Right? Could you imagine?
It would be bad. There'd be a lot of like kids being bit, and then they change their attitude.
Yeah, well, that's why those powerful breeds are banned in the same countries where you're only allowed to do fear-free or force-free training. Like, because you just can't, like, if you take a dog that's bred and strong-willed about their work because they're well-bred to do it, and then you tell them to stop doing it, and then they develop behavioral issues. Like, sorry, I just got kind of lost.
Yes.
There.
Cane horses are bred to fight bears, okay? Ridgebacks or another like boar hunters. Again,
and
they're
lion hunters.
Breeds of dogs. Do what?
And lion hunters, the Rhodesian Ridgebacks, lions in Africa.
There's a Russian dog I know that was bred to hunt lions. I can't remember. I was trying to think of their name. Addo is hilarious. He's like, they're going to talk dogs. You need a cup of coffee. I think the point of the matter is that if you don't understand that there's a responsibility at the very least of owning a certain breed of dog, I don't know what business you have of having kids.
Well,
again, because you're not thinking about the responsibility of what you're putting that animal through. You're only trying to look cool to your friends. You think you should have a kid? That kid's going to have purple hair and be screaming at you at 27 years old, telling you don't call me the right pronoun. Prove me wrong. Change my mind, as I've seen some videos. But, we could go on a lot longer. I mean, ask Cesar Millan, the guy that came here illegally because he thought he was going to learn some things from the Americans. And when he got here, he realized that everybody was treating their dog as a baby. And then you have all these dogs on these medications. Isn't it funny? We got dogs and kids on medications.
Oh yeah, just Prozac. Why not? It shuts them up. Because that's what it is. It's like, oh, you're being too much of a dog or you're being too much of a child. Here, this medication will make you less noticeable.
And again, it's because people don't want to deal with the consequences of their own actions, so they blame it on someone else or they medicate to suppress.
Yeah.
Period. So just take some responsibility for your actions and what you're doing in that situation, and stop thinking that your kid has a mental problem because you don't have enough time to go throw ball or play kickball or take your kid fishing or four-wheeler, whatever it is. I mean, you put a dog in a crate for 10 hours a day, it's going to go dig holes in your yard. You stick your kid in a room with a video game or a smartphone, and you don't ever stretch their mind or go outside and do anything with them, and then you're going to have a kid with behavioral problems. To me, I mean, it's not a far bridge.
No, it's like practically the same thing. We use medication as a way to just replace the work that we should do. Not saying that's always the case, but that is a lot of the time. Whenever I was a teenager, I was living with my aunt at one point, and she I was depressed at the time. I had to see a therapist, put me on Zoloft, an antidepressant. And I'm like thinking back on it later, that stuff was horrible for me, by the way. It was like ruined my mind. And
now, let me ask you this before you go on. I'm going to ask you this before, because this is here you go. Mm-hmm. Did they ever offer to get to the root of the problem? Like whenever you went in and had that happen to you, did they ever say, well, let's get to the root of the problem before we try medication and see where you got to that point?
No, it was more like we just talked a little bit, because I mean, looking back now, it was obvious what my problem was. My parents, my mom and my stepdad, had just been sent to Iraq like a week after my grandma died. Both of those things were like horrible. And then I was like sent to live with my aunt and uncle that I didn't know well in a totally different school district, like separate from my older brother. He got to stay and live with friends in our old school district. And so like thinking back on it now, like we didn't really talk about that much. And in fact, I was so used to people pleasing and being in that habit of having no personality and not wanting to take up anybody's time. I don't remember talking about anything significant to my therapist. She just said that I had situational depression. And therein lies
the problem. That's the problem, because they do that to so many kids. It's nothing's changed. They do the same thing to these kids that have had the same kind of traumatic experiences that you have had. And instead of getting to the root of the problem and letting a kid have the opportunity to talk it out and kind of hone in on what started it all, they just say, here, take this psychotropic drug. Oh, that's not working. We'll put you on a second one. Oh, that second one's not working. We'll change that to another one. Never take you off the first one. Then have all these kids out here like acting nuts. Yep. Because all that stuff stems from what you just brought up, an act. But these so-called therapists don't have it's kind of like going to the doctor, where nowadays, if you don't do a little research on what's going on with you and you go in there and tell the doctor, hey, listen, I worked for a hospital. I was an administrator of a specialty clinic. A specialty doctor would come in my clinic every day and see a number of patients. And when I got a vascular necrosis, it took me 6 months to get it diagnosed. They kept telling me it was my back, and I kept telling them it was my hips. And again, I worked for a hospital, and it took 6 months till they finally ordered an x-ray of my hips. And by then my hip, those ball joints in your hips were completely disintegrated. They'd cracked and crumbled. I was ramming my leg bone up there. They couldn't believe I was still walking. But that's how lazy doctors have gotten. You're going to have lazy teachers. You got lazy therapists. And nobody's saying a word to them, because one of them's funding the pharmaceutical companies. The other one's funding the teachers unions. So they don't give a shit about you. At some point, you probably would have benefited by finding a really good friend and sit down and just talk to them and crying it out, rather than going paying somebody that's professional in the field.
Dude, yeah, you actually just said that literally probably would have been all that I needed to do, is just talk it out and just be like, what the fuck? All this happened at once. I bet if I had that, like, I just wouldn't have imploded. Because I never had, like, at what point
for you to deal with that.
Yeah. Nobody should be expected to like process traumas so quickly, not a child especially. It's like nuts. One thing that I am grateful for is that, I don't know, I feel like that we have come to a breaking point with a lot of things in society, just like a ton of different things, and people are starting to notice. And there are options out there for helping people get over like all these little things that you miss out on, that you lack from not having your parents, or at least not having a very fulfilling relationship with them while you're young, during your formative years. My doctor that I have now, took forever to find a doctor that wasn't just trying to find problems, but like actually had solutions. My doctor now, I absolutely love. And, I'm seeing more and more parents like start to ask questions, although I still have to say I'm kind of like hung up on the disconnect between parents and their kids. But I don't know, I'm just hoping that this feeling of it all like coming to a breaking point actually is like, people are just going to start being like, wow, maybe I'm really just kind of being shitty right now. and then I'm going to do something about it. Not paying attention to my kids. Maybe I'll do that more.
Yeah, it's to me, again, it all stems back from like, there's always a silver lining, right? So we have sit here and brought up the school education system. I know I do it a lot because it corrupts my ass. But what happened is like, I think, again, now the Lord works in mysterious ways, because to me, it's like you had all these parents too busy to figure out what the schools were teaching them. And then we had COVID, and all these kids were taking these Zoom classes at home, and the parents are standing around and they overhear something, assignment that their kid's given. And they're like, wait a minute, what'd she just say? And so then by proxy, you have all these parents now being exposed to what their education system was indoctrinating their kids with. And said, look at how many parents now you have involved saying, no. You got away with it for this long. No. You can't educate kids about, say, Christianity or whatever, Judaism or Protestant, whatever, pick your religion. But you're going to tell these kids to write down all the great things about Islam. That was happening. And these parents were like, what? Like, why are you picking one religion to educate my child on and act like there's no issues with, but every one of them you can't even bring up? That doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing with evolution. There's a reason why it's called the theory of evolution, because it's a theory. right, in my mind as a Christian, like I say to people all the time, even following Darwin's beliefs that if you are an evolved animal, there should be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of skeletons of however that animal evolved, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, show me the evolution of a giraffe. Can anybody show me any skeletons or the evolution of a giraffe? The answer is always, oh, well, they just hadn't been found yet. So we can find skeletons of dinosaurs, but we can't find any of the evolution of the giraffe. And then I think it was Cat Williams, the comedian,
Mhm.
one of his comedy shows one time. And he said, listen, people, you dummies. He was like, supposedly, right, we evolved from monkeys, correct? He said, if that's the truth, then why are they still damn monkeys out there? Why haven't those monkeys evolved into humans? Anybody? It's like, and it's like those common sense questions that people just make excuses for and overlook. Like you don't see the chimpanzee going to the silverback gorilla and then some kind of something in between the silverback gorilla and a human being. Like that should be out there, right? If we've evolved from it, where's it at?
Yeah.
I don't know. And we take from all the way from raised right to gorillas. I don't know how to do it. But that just goes to show you how people are so easily told these are the facts. They don't do any of their own research and they just fall in line. It's the same thing with parents falling in line because of pressure from school teachers or other parents. And the same thing we said about politicians that gripe my ass because they go out here and tweet about all the problems. They go out here and have some meeting or some, go out in front of the microphone talking about how bad, say, the left is, but they don't do a damn thing. They don't do a damn thing. And so it's like, and it's everywhere. It's like the same thing with these companies that say fund this critical race theory or all this vaccine stuff going on. Or now they're funding like socialist programs or whatever. And these are capitalists that have multi-million-dollar companies. And you're like, do you understand the end game here, dummy door? They want to take all your money and give it to people that want to sit on the couch. It's like, I don't know. It's shocking to me.
Well, I mean, we have reached like a level of just like
Morons.
dumb, I guess. My little sister, the one day she messaged me and she was like, Casey, can you die if you don't drink water for like a really long period of time?
3 days.
The next time I saw her, I was like, Elise, please tell me that you need water to survive. Like, did you ask me that question because you really don't know if you need water? And she was like, no, I wasn't asking for myself, but I was asking for a friend. She didn't believe me. She doesn't like drinking water. I was trying to talk her into it because she just wants to drink pop, soda, wherever you're from. And
yeah, down here we call everything Coke, whether we're talking about Pepsi or root beer, Dr. Pepper. We're like, you want a Coke? And then somebody up north would be like, no, I'll take Pepsi. Down here, when we ask you if you want a Coke, we're asking for you to follow it up with which one you want. Like if I were in the South and said, you want a Coke? You would come back and say, yeah, I'll take Coca-Cola. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we call everything Coke down here. What kind of Coke you want? We mean whatever kind of carbonated beverage. But it's 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food is like the universal way to kind of remember it.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that should be one of the things we throw in the school curriculums then.
Yeah, they don't. Are you crazy? Teaching people about survivability or how to balance a checkbook or how not to be a little whiny bitch? That ain't gonna happen. They need to make them know all about their feelings, because that'll save them in the hardest times. Or can feel their way to a fire. I don't know. That's why, listen, it's like I think Adel brought it up on his show the other day, talking about people that want to be vaccinated. He's like, yeah, if you want to be vaccinated, get vaccinated. If we're stupid because we don't want to, then where's the problem? We're just going to, die off, right? If we're the dumb one. I think he's the one that said it. I can't remember, but it goes to, it's your body and your choice when it comes to abortion. When it comes to vaccine, you're a granny killer if you don't get it. It's this trying to maintain this double speak or this double thought, and people don't even understand what hypocrites they're being.
Yeah.
Like it's your choice if you want to kill another human being, but it's not your choice if you don't want to take an experimental vaccine. Like make that make sense.
There's no way of making that make sense. And then with this feminist that I was all hung up on that I got triggered by, and that in that website, her saying that that should be a choice, or that shouldn't be a choice. Not even a choice. You shouldn't have a choice to be a housewife. That's like freedom of choice.
Yeah, but people don't.
Housewife.
It's like groupthink matters more than freedom of choice anymore. It is what it
Yeah.
is. I mean, again, it is the indoctrination of an entire generation, and it's the strong people out there that refuse to follow it, in my mind. It
Yeah.
is the strong free thinkers of the world that don't, when people say jump off a bridge, they're the ones, they're standing there looking over the edge. Look at all these morons. You know what I mean? The Darwin Awards right there at the bottom. So I'm encouraged by it. I don't like to make people think that it's all doom and gloom, because like I said, the silver lining is that there's so many parents now paying attention. For choice of my body, my choice. Dude, you're having 5 kids, whether you like it or not. I don't know if you heard this show or not. but like again, it is, the situation is like the encouragement of seeing these parents speaking out now, right? I think the encouragement of even saying people like me, and because Adel brought in his body's choice, is it will come out here on the airwaves now, whether it's popular or not, and tell everybody listening that I would vote for them more than I would vote for any career politician. Because whether or not you know what you're doing, I trust you more to figure it out, do what's right for this country, in any country, no matter where you're at, than I would some career politician that tweets about it or writes a letter about it and does absolutely nothing about it. I think they should all freaking be replaced. I think you can keep Marjorie Taylor Greene, stick her off in a damn room somewhere until it's all done, and then elect a whole slot of a bunch of people that just love their country and are willing to figure it out. And that's how you make a change. That's, as long as we can keep our elections lawful, we don't have another Dominion that they don't have a password for, and we got a chance in doing that. Now, I don't know, poor California, or maybe the people in California can stand up and get Gavin Newsom replaced by somebody that cares. But, I don't know what they're going to do. They got a homeless problem over there like it ain't no damn nobody's business. And Texan says, I'm not going to drink the water because fish F in it. And I'm like, girl, come on now. Use a what is that called? Purifier. Strain that stuff. Use a sock if you got to. You see stuff floating in your water? Get you some sand, get you some gravel, get you some dry hay, and get you a little activated charcoal. That's all you need. Make your own.
Oh my gosh. Those are the things that should have been taught.
Well, listen, we can do a prepping thing one night if you want to. I've been prepping for 15 years. I know the kind of the basis of it. I've been doing it for a long time. There's something put a calling on my heart that I needed to always have that stash. And ever since then, I've collected things over the years. I think it's important for everyone to have like at least enough to sustain yourself for 3 months. And at least by then it'll give you time to try and find another group of people that are like-minded and to try to pull together to find resources. But the way that the economy's going, the way that Biden keeps the Federal Reserve keeps printing money hand over fist, and Biden keeps writing the checks of trillions of dollars. I mean, it is like they are intentionally trying to bankrupt this country. And while people are paying attention to what's happening with CRT and the border and stuff, we are slowly going broker and broker and broker.
Oh yeah. Also, while Biden's just like screaming about how vulnerable we are, just making our country a great target.
Yeah, and I have a random question. This is so off the topic, but I have a random question.
I'm down for it.
Can you explain to me? I know this is probably not your field of study, but I would love for you to explain to me about how every year we can give billions of dollars to our military budget, and yet we're in the same war we've been in for 20 years. We know if they've built a new naval ship and how much that cost. And we have about the same amount of people enlisted in the military, but yet we up our budget all the time. Where in the hell's that money
going? Aren't they making more like gender neutral like uniforms or something? Isn't there?
Yeah, because that's what's important.
Some fashion thing? Are we paying for penises to get removed off of people? I don't remember what our military does.
I just think it's ironic the day that Rumsfeld comes out and say the Pentagon's lost $2 trillion, the next day 9/11 happens. And ever since, because they were going to audit the Federal Reserve, they were going to audit it. And then all of a sudden 9/11 happens. And that, of course, that never happened. But it would be nice if we had a government in this country, and I'm sure other countries would agree, that they actually had to account for the money that they're given and they spend.
Yeah.
That's a thought.
Even a housewife has to do that.
Yeah, I thought about that the other day and thought, what the hell would they do if they had to account for every dime they spent? Because look, we're giving people millions of dollars and they can't tell you where it goes. Well, we got teachers crying that they don't want to go back and teach kids because they're teaching children that have almost literally zero risk of COVID. Zero. But you got whiny teachers in a country that's getting paid more and more money to sit their asses at the house. And then you wonder why these people can't find people to come work for them, because our government's paying them more money to sit at home than go to work. And then you have a bunch of green-haired people crying about not being able to find a job. Just a thought. I don't know. I sometimes, and I don't know how everybody would feel, but it does make me wonder how the majority of this, or I won't say the majority, I'll say a lot of people in this country would survive if they woke up tomorrow and their power was off and the water wasn't coming out of their tap.
Oh my. I remember a friend of mine freaking out whenever her parents cut her off from her cash allowance whenever she still had access to her credit card and Lexus. So I don't even know how people like that would function.
412 says maternity parachutes and the money goes to building more bases on the moon. Yep, for them to rocket off to and leave us all here. When apparently all the aliens invade, which is a whole another topic. I mean, why they're pressing out all these UFOs in the media, I have no idea. I don't know what to think anymore. Because if the CIA or the Pentagon and shit did not want that information to come out, it would not be coming out. And if they've known about it for 60 years, then why are they deciding right now is a good time to tell everybody? There's always an agenda, girl, to what these people do. There always is. And most of the time it's a distraction from the bigger stuff that's happening. And you have a president that shut down the Keystone Pipeline, and today he approved a Russia pipeline that's going to give Germany access to it and bypass the UK. And it's a whole other thing. So what we heard about Trump and Russia for 4 years, but apparently Biden can support the Russian economy and he's perfectly fine. Hey, I don't know. I know that's off topic, but these are just things that, I pay attention to the news that bother me. And I'm just like, but I completely agree, Casey. I believe that if people don't start paying attention to what's going on with the education system, what's going on with these kids, and stop trying to drug them down and not get to the root of the problem when they are having problems. I mean, you look at the suicide rate right now in the age bracket where it's the highest. Our military veterans are doing it. Our kids are doing it. But I thought these kids were supposed to be the most medicated and cared for kids of any generation. And yet they're the saddest.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't be.
Well, so that to me, my opinion is because these kids don't have real relationships with people. Their relationships are their likes and hearts on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. They don't have true relationships with people that can give them good advice and hang out with them and shoot hoops or, whatever it is.
Which is devastating because we're totally a social species. I feel like the government doesn't want us to remember that right now with 6 feet between us and not being able to see our faces change when we talk because we have the masks over our face. Could you imagine that flying in the dog world? Imagine a dog showing up to another pack of dogs wearing something to cover its face. That's not going to fly. And
it's funny because even on Pit Bulls and Parolees, are you familiar with that show?
I've never watched it, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, they did a rescue the other day, and one of the parolees that's been there with them, Tony, they were going to rescue a pit bull, and the pit bull was kind of shy. He says, because these damn masks, and pulled his mask down. And I thought it was kind of funny because you're right about that. But I will say this again for people out there that are, if you in America know it, but watch this later. We have some UK folks because of Daddy Dragon and stuff. But if you America is like every state is like its own little country in a way because the governors can set the rules for every state. You've seen that happen with COVID and stuff. Where I live, there has never been a mask mandate. Never, never been a mask mandate. I have worn a mask one time, and it was when I had to take my dad to the hospital to get cancer treatment in Murfreesboro. And I understood it because I was going into a hospital. It's the only time I've put one on. I've still had to go to the grocery store, convenience stores, a post office. I mean, you know, I have still lived my life, and I have never put on a mask. So I know it kind of depends on where you live, as how crazy people have gone. But like again, I hope that people understand that all these videos you see of every single person in the grocery store putting one on. I go to the same grocery store that I have. I've gone to Food Line and the other little small one I normally go to. Even the employees at this small one I go to don't have one on. The employees don't have one on. So depends on where you live. But you'll watch the mainstream media, make sure that they produce every single video they can of the stores that are in the country, in the states that are enforcing it. They don't ever talk about the ones that aren't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the places where there's just like everybody's been surviving without issue, not acknowledging any of the mandates, anyways, in certain areas.
Well, Adel said they made our entire society autistic. And again, where was autism 20, 25 years ago?
Right. And where are all the autistic animals out in nature? Like, well, I guess they would get eaten real fast, but still, like, you just, the shit that becomes normal for humans is not supposed to be normal.
Well, I mean, it all goes. We've been poisoned for years. I mean, you look at they put the chemical waste of fluoride into our water. Yes, that fluoride that's put into your water is the runoff at chemical plants. They put them in toxic barrels and then they stick that shit in your water. If you ever look at the back of your toothpaste that has fluoride in it, it tells you to seek medical help if you swallow it, but yet it's in your drinking water. Two, you have Monsanto that's immediately putting pesticides on the seeds. They've got the farmers, basically under lock and key. They can't even use the same seeds. They have to keep buying more. These seeds had pesticides in them that basically decimated the honeybee population, and honeybee is what needed to cross pollinate. So now everything they're making is with GMO, and they spray it with all kinds of pesticides. That's why you see 12-year-old girls now have the breast size of 30-year-old woman, and nobody's batting an eye and thinking about all the hormones, the growth hormones, the antibiotics the chickens are injected with, the cows are injected with. So there's your milk, there's your chicken. It's in everything. Even our fruit has got coatings of wax on it, where you got something like an apple that should be decayed within a week and a half. Now staying what you would call, I guess, ripe for a month. No, that's natural.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, and then you wonder why the people have the cancer has gone up. I think what is it? We've given like 40 billion. Is it 40 billion or 90 billion dollars in cancer research for 40 years, but nobody's come up with a cure for cancer. But they can come up with a cure for COVID supposedly in 6 months. Okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. And KS2A, it's Nature Ninja. KS2A in Foxhole was asking what your I think what your handle was. Or did I read that wrong? Oh no, he got it. He replied. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about that I don't know if we'll necessarily ever disagree, but I told you I'm completely open in being the lefty, because I did it with a group of people in a Discord server a couple years ago where we would argue each side. And I think I've read like the leftist stuff. Like I'll show you this. It's freaking hilarious. I think Breaking sent me some about the Babylon Bee today, so I checked on their website and I saw this, the Babylon Bee's Guide to Gen Z Slang. Have you seen? So I got to read, right? And it's like, yeet. Then this is the Babylon Bee again. So go ahead, Snopes, with your fact checking. It's a satirical site. But yeet, it says, we think this means throw, but in some contexts, it might also mean advanced automotive repair or to butter one's toast. It's really unclear. The gram, you know, the gram means Instagram. They said refers to illicit drugs, which are sold by the gram. Did you see the picture of my dog on the gram? Could be code for please sell me drugs. Fam, A reference to your traditional nuclear family with a mom, dad, and siblings. Dear, would you set the table for us, please? I got you, fam. Stan, drugs, question mark, no cap, a phrase used when you're in a hurry, leaving the house and your hair is messy and you didn't have time to grab a hat. Yo, hey, bro, your hair is messy, no cap, which is not what it means. It means that, you're telling the truth. But a basic, the unpaid or freemium version of a service. Hey, man, do you have Spotify Premium? Nah, I just have the basic to save on my monthly expensive. Like, it just goes on, like ghosting, boomer, Netflix and chill. But if you ever need to laugh, Babylon Bee is definitely where to go. But it is, it is kind of like, and I brought that up because if you Google and you look at how many different genders that there are now, you just don't. It'll just piss you off.
Oh, I don't have to, because I have a sister who goes to public school, so she knows all the genders and she tells me all the time.
You should bring her on one day, because I'd love to know what moon gender is and, flower gender.
Yeah. You know what? I ask her lots of questions about those things. She is actually, she's pretty level-headed about how she answers things. That would be funny to have her on here.
I asked my niece who went to, is it Emory College? It's outside of it, right in Atlanta. She went to the college there, and I asked her one time how bad it was on campus, and she said, well, I'm not going to lie to you. She was like, one day I went, she said some students had took a picture of one of the, she said more like it, I guess he was maybe a Trump supporter, conservative kids, and wrote some really hateful stuff about him and plastered it all over the campus. And I was like, there you go. Yeah. And that's what they try to do. They try to freaking shame the shit out of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to shame you into, submittance.
That's the most important reason to be there for your child and to instill a sense of self into them. Man, parents that are listening to this, I hope that if your kids are in school, you take the time to ask them what they learn and to teach them about how the world is.
Yeah, it is. Well, it is, it's definitely some deep subjects. It's a lot of stuff to talk about. It's hopefully, and then in the future we can, I can play the devil's advocate and whatever you want to talk about. Unfortunately, or even showing some Antifa videos that are just like, I don't know what's going on. I think Forto probably had where he said they made everybody autistic. If they didn't make them autistic, they made them ADHD, or they have depression or anxiety, and then filling them full of drugs and wondering one day when they snap or they're acting. I mean, I've seen people on videos, girl, that think they're damn dogs. You can't make that shit up. I identify as a Doberman. I'm not even kidding with you. That's a real thing. Chick identified like as a Doberman, and literally had plastic ears and a tail and wore a collar and wanted her boyfriend / master to walk her. And then these are the same people that talk about women empowerment. You go, girl, go piss on that bush.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. Oh dear.
I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss tonight?
No, I think that's all for tonight. I really thought that we'd find something at least a little bit more to disagree on. Not that I was looking to just disagree. It's just funny how easy this conversation went whenever I didn't have that much lined up.
Oh yeah, I can gab, girl. Sometimes too much. Like I told you after Monday night, I was like, I just have to get used to you, like me being with women are usually more courteous. They don't talk over you and stuff. And men, I'm not saying men are mean, but men will get back and forth. Where sometimes you have to just like speak up, or you don't get it out and you forget your thought. So I'm kind of used to doing that as well. But with you, I've got to like find my softer side and be like, no, she's not like that. Shut up, Laura. Let her talk. So that'll be on me to figure that out, because I need to. And I've worked with a lot of men in this last 3 years. So listen, men are simple. Men don't get usually strong minded men can take me, but I'm a pretty blunt person. And I will say in closing that I get what you're saying. Again, I think that there are exceptions a lot of the time, and there are like I'll take Ben Carson for example. He's the man's a damn brain surgeon, and he was raised by a single mom in the projects. And look at what he become. But I wonder if Ben Carson wasn't surrounded by good grandparents, or had an uncle, or whatever. But if you put your mind to it and you understand what it takes to become successful, and you don't follow the crowd, you stand on your own, and you stand up for what you believe in, you can accomplish anything in this world. Anything in this country. Let me take that back. Anything in this country. And so all this victimhood shit and, because of the color of my skin, I ain't got enough, or because I didn't go to a great school, blah, blah, blah. Well, you can go to a shitty school and make good grades. And if you're a minority, you can usually get a full ride to college. And even in the state like of Tennessee where I live, if you get minimal grades and you're a resident of Tennessee, and I mean just passing, and you're a resident of Tennessee, they'll send you to community college for 2 years for free. You can get a grant. So it also depends on what state you're in. So just know that I think with hard work and the right mindset, and I mean, like even look at you, Casey, you've been through your troubles and your dramas, and you come out on the other end, a pretty well-rounded person, in my opinion.
Somehow.
you could easily be green-haired with 3 nose rings, crying to your mama about her not getting your pronouns right. That's just reality.
Well, you know what? In case you ever do some like online searching of me, there were times where I've had different colored hair and piercings for those reasons, but I've seen the light.
Thank God you found Adel. That's all I got to say, because you'd probably be somebody I'd have on being like, "What is wrong with you?"
Oh my God. Yeah.
Adel's a good guy, guys. No nonsense. I give him a lot of shit just so everybody out there knows. I love Adel to death. He knows it.
Yeah, Adel's definitely he's someone I needed in my life. He's definitely a good example for not just going with the crowd. I don't think Adel has the ability to not speak his mind. Like I don't think it works that way. Like if he opens his mouth, he's saying what's in that brain of his.
Yeah, that's what I respect about it, is that he does not, he's one of those people that don't follow in the line to jump off the bridge. He does not do it. And again, there's a handful of people that I've met in this community that I met a lot of people. And all I will say is I could probably count on one hand the amount of people that I know or who they are in front of that camera. They're the same way behind it. And I'll just leave it at that. He's one of them. So, take that what that is what it is. You know what I mean?
And I'm grateful. It is what it is.
But it was fun, Kate. We had a good time. You want to think about what you want to talk about next time, or you want me to try and figure it out, or?
I don't mind thinking about it. I've actually had a lot of thoughts for today. I guess for me, it's just like if I can stay on topic after I come up with the idea. But
do you have anything you want to add at the end about, like, quickly? We don't have to spend 30 minutes on it. You can kind of say what your thoughts were really quick if you want to.
Oh yeah, like for upcoming stuff, I love this topic of nuclear families. We could dive into 1,000 different ways of looking at it. I would over time like to discuss more like the differences between like just the end results of different upbringings and how it affects my decision making today, and how it affects my ability to be like a good patriot who needs to make stuff happen in the world versus people who were born with more or raised with parents and more conviction, I guess. So I guess that's where my mind has been going. But if you ask me at any certain point, I have a lot of ideas popping in my head since this is also new to me. So I might be kind of rambly for a while. If anyone wants to stop me from that, more than welcome.
Do not give yourself a hard time. I'll be the same one that has to understand. If you give me like I talked about, like bullet points, I can stay on point with bullet points better. But if I just get on here to gab, I'll be the one like needing to shut up. You know what I'm saying? because I can just go on and then take us off on a tangent. Before you know it, we're talking about silverback gorillas. Okay, so don't give yourself such a hard time. It's just I've done almost too much research, and like while we've been talking, like Michelle has sent me a link to one of the things that she has done at the Child Protection League. I think you'll really like her as well. She's a smart lady, man, and you get her in here, and I think that you'll be quite impressed with 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 who she is, and how she communicates and stuff. She's a really good woman, and I don't know, I just appreciate her. And so so we'll get her involved with us to talk about some of this stuff. She's actually sent me a link to something to watch that I'm going to have to watch, and I think, like I said, I think that we'll have a lot to talk about with her. I'll try to get her on as much as I can with us, especially if you want to go over this topic. And we'll just see how it goes with her. Because she's one of those that she's an activist dear. She doesn't talk the talk. Her butt's out there on Capitol Hill. Let me just tell you, like when I messaged her to ask her, and I try to give them shouts after you wonder why I'm going on about it on air, is because I so respect this woman. She is she's a hero, I'm telling you, because how much work she has done. But
I can see them just looking at our website. Even like I learned a lot just from briefly looking at our website. It gave me already kind of more of an idea of what questions that I want answers to with like my little sibling schools and stuff. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, like I asked her about joining us, and she said, I probably could. I'm working on a PowerPoint now that will include CRT, which I need for a presentation I'm giving on 6/12. However, I have a packed week and have to speak at a rally on Saturday, so I don't think I'll get to it till next week if possible. And then she said, shoot for 6/3. Like, again, that's why I respect her. It's because the lady does it. She does the work, and she's going out here pushing back against these education systems trying to indoctrinate your kid. So when she can come on with us, trust me, there'll be a lot to discuss. She's a lovely person. She sent me a thing. She said she's so nice. She sent me a thing saying I could live stream it, even though I would have to take it down and not list it because they're still, like, say, charging for the seminar. And then she offered to come on with a Q&A afterwards. So I'll try to make sure I schedule that for when we can be together, because I would love to. I've asked her so many questions. I would love to hear the questions that you have for her.
Yeah.
Because I like hearing a fresh perspective, right? You'll think of things I won't think of.
Yeah. I'm just by thinking of the questions that I had by going over her website, I'm going to have a lot of questions for her. I hope it doesn't feel like an interrogation, actually.
No, she loves it. She loves it. That I'm telling you, she loves it. You're not going to offend her. You're not going to. She likes the questions, because more than likely she'll have the answers, because she's seen this for years. But with that, if you're ready to say goodbye, we'll take it out, and then we'll see everybody here on Monday again at 9 Central, 10 Eastern. And I think that one maybe I'll put out on social media or something. You're doing a great job, Casey. You're doing better than me. Hell, I've been on air for 3 years.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I'm not used to having an audience for all my ramblings. I'm so used to being surrounded by dogs that holding a coherent thought together is quite the feat for me. So I appreciate you all listening to my practice of being human.
You would be amazed at how learning how to be a good leader for dogs, I think, can reflect on your ability to hold valuable conversations with human beings.
I agree.
I mean, that's just my take on it, but it is what it is. All right, girl, do you want to take us out of here? I'm so used to letting somebody else do it. That's why I do that, if you wonder.
Oh, sure. Does that mean just thanking everyone and saying goodbye?
I do a Daddy Dragon and he goes, bye. So you can just be like, thanks for being here, everybody. See you next time. Something. I don't care.
Oh, okay. Thanks for being here, everybody. And normally, I love being in the Foxhole chat. So just imagine that I'm sending you all a bunch of heart emojis and all the stuff I do. So sending everyone love and prayers for your health, as always.
Bye.
All right. Bye.